With breaking news into Fox Weather, a heartbreaking update. Fox Weather has confirmed that these storms have turned deadly in Kentucky. Officials say a Clay County man, a 73-year-old man, was found dead in Horse Creek area. That's Clay County, after apparently being knocked off his feet by rushing waters. Officials say the victim had gotten out of his stalled car on a highway. So these are the hazards that we always talk about. The flooding occurs, car stalls out, gentleman gets out of his vehicle, and the situation turns tragic. That can happen with flash flooding, and those hazards aren't over with tonight. So again, heartbreaking update tonight that these storms have turned deadly in Kentucky. I do want to show you where we stand right now. We've had several reports of hail, still 43 active warnings, 8 severe thunderstorm warnings. We've had numerous tornado warnings through the last several hours. Still, though, 35 flash flood warnings that are in effect. And this is an event that will most certainly be remembered. We've been talking about this for hours, and in the lead up to this, for flooding. Because of the nature of this, it was a two-part event. One played out across these areas through the lion's share of the daytime hours today, flooding throughout the day as that persistent back-building coverage of rain and thunderstorms moved west to east across much of Kentucky and Tennessee and into the Appalachians, where we still have flash flood emergencies. We're going to learn more about those, speaking with the Weather Service office there coming up in just a few moments. But yes, scenes like this, and now more of that rain with the line of storms along and out ahead of the cold front that need to work through some of these areas that are still just brutally susceptible to flooding because the ground's completely saturated. There's either flash flooding occurring or it's already occurred today, and it tells you something about the soil moisture, completely saturated. And now this coverage of rain, even if it moves through more quickly, it will as compared to what happened earlier today. But even another inch of rain in spots, which is easily achieved by some of these storms, the flash flood guidance now for some of these spots is only about 1/4 to half an inch of rain necessary to cause new flash flooding because of where we stand with these storms. This is
now extended through 8 a.m. tomorrow. Originally it was 9 o'clock, 9:30 tonight. Now it's 8 a.m.
Okay, and
this is NWS Blacksburg.
Okay, so that's Sam and Weather Command telling us that the flash flood emergency in Mercer and Summers counties in West Virginia, that was issued by the National Weather Service office out of Blacksburg, and we're going to talk with them coming up in about a minute. This has been extended through the overnight until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it has that catastrophic tag on it, meaning, sadly, as we've seen, these situations present a huge threat, a huge risk to life and property. And then you factor in that we're well beyond sunset, and we're moving into the overnight hours, and we've got more rain moving into these areas that have already had a horrible last several hours. So there are problems to take us all the way through the overnight period. We'll learn more about that coming up in just a moment. But even flanking that flash flood emergency on all sides are flash flood warnings. So it tells you that this truly is not a localized problem. We had that massive coverage of persistent rain for hours earlier. It was 3, 4, 5, a measured total. We had over 6 inches of rain, and amounts of rain like that in places like this, where there are beautiful hillside and mountains, it always leads to terrible results of flash flooding when you have rain of this magnitude, especially in a wintertime event like this. This is something we don't necessarily see very often in the middle part of February. It's the time of the year where we're talking more still about the cold side of storms like this. Let's get to it. I believe we have them now for more on this catastrophic flooding event. We've got Phil Heisel. He's the warning coordination meteorologist from the National Weather Service office in Blacksburg, Virginia. He's on the phone with us now. Thank you, Phil, for being with us. This has been such a challenging day, and I know through the overnight period there are now concerns. We've just seen a reissuance, I believe from your office, of that flash flood emergency. What can you tell us about the concern moving into the overnight?
Yeah, exactly. We have extended the flash flood emergency for Mercer and Summers County in southeast West Virginia now until 8 a.m. We're getting ground truth from emergency management in Mercer County. The swiftwater rescues are still ongoing, even though the rain has ended a couple of hours ago. The runoff just continues to swell creeks and streams and take them out of their banks. We also have heard reports of some evacuations and homes and structures being inundated by water. Our concerns are twofold. As you mentioned, the darkness and people unable to see the water over the road. And two, temperatures have been in the 30s in this region, and the temperatures of the waters are very cold. If anybody has to go into the water, we're very concerned about the potential for hypothermia.
Yeah, and we saw that in the text issued in that emergency from your office earlier, and that really jumped out to a lot of us here at Fox Weather. One, obviously the rarity with a flash flood emergency, but to have one that includes the word hypothermia especially speaks to the rarity of an event like this.
Yeah, well said. You know, I cannot recall a time where we've had that wording in our flash flood emergencies or any flash flood warnings.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also spoke to me about how the update that you had issued prior to some of these, and mentioning the lag time that it takes for some of the rain sometimes to make its way out of the higher terrain, the mountains, the hillsides, into the valleys, and that can be an indicator. It can catch people off guard that water can still come up well beyond the rain wrapping up. But the rain wrapped up for a period of time. And now you have all of this approaching from the west. We're watching to see how well that line of storms maintains itself tonight. You get a couple warnings up in your area. It's Mercer and Summers and also Tazewell, if I'm not mistaken. And now you have all this rain moving into those areas. How much concern into the overnight for additional catastrophic flooding? I would think the flash flood guidance is about 0 in some of these places.
Exactly. Yeah, our concern for Sunday morning when we expect this decaying line to move through is, as you said, it's already incredibly saturated. The ground cannot absorb any more moisture. So although the amount of precipitation is not expected to be that much, considering the fast movement of this decaying line, we're still expecting about a half an inch to fall, and that will likely lead to some additional flash flooding for Sunday morning across southwest Virginia and southeast West Virginia for those areas that unfortunately have been hit so hard by the flooding rains today.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, we had talked about the cold, the temperature of the water, obviously. This storm moves on through. You're waiting. It's going to be one of those weird days temperature-wise tomorrow on opposite sides of the front where your temperatures actually are going in reverse to the opposite side of the day. But by Sunday night into Monday, you've got some of these places dropping down, into the upper teens, low 20s. Any concern for this high water to go into a freeze with some of the colder temperatures closer to President's Day?
Yeah, that's a great point. There's two things we're concerned about after this line moves through. One, as you mentioned, the lingering moisture could refreeze on roads, creating slick surfaces. But another concern we have is the winds are really going to pick up behind this front that comes through Sunday morning. And for some of our mountain counties, we expect wind gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour. Considering the significant ice storm we had last week and how saturated the grounds are, additional power outages, unfortunately, are likely. And this area has already endured tens of thousands of power outages from the ice storm last week.
Hey, Phil, just one more question before we let you go. I know that this has got to be a busy night tonight, but I'm thinking back to some of the events that we've had in recent history in the area, not necessarily some of the same counties that you have this go around, but generally speaking, not too far away like Buchanan County. We had an event in 2022. We had an event in 2023, terrible flooding, awfully close by. In 2023, though, this was July. Can you speak to this amount of moisture with a storm in the middle part of February? That, to me, is an odd aspect of this.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's some key differences between those two events. As you mentioned, one was a summertime event that was, while incredibly catastrophic, was fairly localized to Buchanan County and some surrounding areas, whereas this event was widespread. And while the amount of rain may have been slightly less, the fact that the ground just could not absorb any of that rain because it was covered with snow and ice and already saturated, that's what made this especially bad, is just the lack of the ability of the moisture to take in the rain.
Yeah, this has been an awful day. You said it, how widespread this has been across the region. We're not quite done with it yet. So you just heard some of the additional and lingering hazards beyond that. Phil, great context for us. That's Phil Heisel, the WCM with the National Weather Service office out of Blacksburg. Thanks very much for the time tonight on Fox Weather.